What's up, you beautiful creepy bastards, my wonderful fear-loving family? Tonight, I got another creepypasta for you. This one is called Darkwatyr. Being shackled beneath the moonlit waves, still breathing, still screaming, is an odd sensation. I know that'll be my fate soon if I don't act quickly. So I want to get my story written down before that happens. I'd always been a swimmer. It was just something that I enjoyed. I was on swim team at school, went to the indoor pool even when it was freezing outside, and treasured my family trips to the beach. I didn't ever think that it would get me in trouble. Well, not this kind of trouble. Anyway, I had a summer job as a lifeguard when I was 17 at the local beach. It was relatively uneventful, as people were surprisingly safety conscious. I remember my first rescue very, very clearly. I suppose that's mostly because of it. A little girl, maybe 6 or 7, had been playing on a sandbar with her mother when an unusually large wave had pushed her into the current. I remember sprinting into the water and running against the pull of the waves, and eventually diving beneath the water. The child was afraid and had swallowed some seawater, but she was otherwise unscathed. I had just returned to the shore with the girl and her mother when I heard the noise. It sounded like some kind of underwater explosion, though no one else seemed to take notice of it. I looked around frantically, searching for the source of the noise. That was when I heard it. Its voice was like that of 1,000 people, speaking every language at once. Somehow, though, I still heard very clearly the following. Your interference in fate has created resonance. You will ascend beyond the confines of your flesh, or be destroyed. It was an almost female voice that spoke these words, at a volume I could barely tolerate. I was understandably panicked, and quickly found the other lifeguard on duty to tell her that I was going to have to take the rest of the day off. After I drove myself home, I tried to forget about the strange things I'd heard. It had to have been some prank or some live event. Maybe it was the stress of performing a rescue. To distract myself, I decided to check my email. I had only one new message from a recipient I'd never seen before. I was simply going to delete it when I realized that it might be from work. Mental. Hello, Mr. Fletcher. I understand that Master has chosen you as a latest disciple. This is a tremendous honor, let me assure you. I know that this might all seem very confusing, but I ask that you remain calm. For any questions you may have, please email me back or see the attachment. Sincerely, Ricardo Allen, 664th disciple. How'd this guy get my contact info? What was Master? Curious, I opened up the attached file It was an image file that made me nearly break my phone as I flung it into the air out of sheer terror. The creature was massive and monstrous. It looked ancient. Great clumps of algae sprouted from what I could only guess were scars on what I assumed to be its face, which was covered in an almost rock-like armor. 5 indigo eyes stared at me from beyond the phone, 2 arranged on either side of the center of its armor and 1 above. 2 yellow tusks protruded from its massive crooked maw, and all on the head of the thing were a multitude of barbed spines. By all accounts, this thing was unbelievable. My hands shaking, I responded to the email with only, "Please remove me from your contact list." I thought that was the end of it, though I still quit my job as a lifeguard about a week after the incident. As senior year started, my thoughts were plagued by the monstrous thing Ricardo Allen had sent me. I found solace in my schoolwork and generally was content as long as I kept myself occupied. Everything changed though when Iris arrived. It read, "To Tobias Fletcher, from Ricardo Allen at..." Iris Letterham's family had moved to California from Oregon. Iris was a bit taller than me, had a thin build, and sported shoulder-length hair that was dyed a minty green. She was a senior and ended up with a schedule identical to mine. Like me, she also worked hard in her academics. We quickly became good friends. It was about halfway through the semester when some weird things started to happen. I started having terrible nightmares featuring all sorts of hellish disasters. Cities burning to the ground, innocents being swallowed up by tidal waves and dragged out to sea, and orphaned children dying of starvation in the ruins of developed cities. All of these dreams were dominated by an almighty roar, followed by soft whisperings of an innumerable number of voices. I knew that they came from it. Iris and I were working on a project for our government class when she suddenly asked me, "Do you know anything about the Darkwatyr cult killings?" I replied that I had never heard of them, to which she explained that in the past 9 years, 3 people aligned with a cult dedicated to worship of a forgotten god had disappeared, only to be found a few months later, their corpses mutilated beyond recognition. She said that she had been researching noteworthy crimes in the area for an extra credit assignment in psychology, and that this one stood out to her. I wasn't so sure about the validity of that statement. 4 days later, I received a strange email like the one I'd gotten in the summer. To Tobias Fletcher, from Sylvia Nichols at Immortality. Dear Mr. Fletcher, my name is Sylvia Nichols. Master has commanded me to give you important instructions, which you must not disregard, as you did 664's. As your immediate predecessor, I must inform you that failure to comply with your orders will result in immediate destruction. Immortality is an ageless, immortal being of great power and light. It is our master and bestows great gifts to its obedient disciples. It selects individuals with whom it resonates. You are the 666th of our order, which has spanned all of time. With the advent of heightened technology, Immortality has had more opportunities for resonance than ever before. What you must do on the preordained date is this. 1. Return to your location of residence. It will be a watery place. 2. Enter the water of the place of residence. 3. Cry out the name of our master, Isiroremto, the Sea Darkener. Be rewarded with the ultimate gift, ascension from mortality into an Aglargu, the species of our master. Failure to perform the required actions will result in your destruction. A disciple is rewarded every half year. My time will come in 2 days. You will have 6 months after that date to prepare. I wish you luck. Sylvia, 665th disciple. I was so shaken up by the email that I completely forgot to print it out the next day to show to Iris. The day after that, I took the printed email to school. Iris looked at it and told me very seriously to meet her behind the cafeteria after school was over. To my utter shock, she didn't come to any of her classes that day. When I went behind the cafeteria, I found Iris curled up underneath a bench, facing away from me. I went over to make sure that she was alright. When I tapped her on the shoulder, she rolled onto her back, limply. I screamed. Her face was gone. In its place was the face of Isiroremto. It sprung upward at an impossible speed, swung its hand to my lips, and hissed, "Stay silent." I blinked. Iris's body was gone. In front of me sat a semi-translucent form of a massive creature. Its front arms were almost humanoid, except that they ended in massive hook-like structures, and its lower torso was comprised of gargantuan tentacles. The face that stared down at me was identical to the one I'd seen in the 664th disciple's email attachment. I looked up at it and asked, "Isiroremto, the Sea Darkener?" It stared back down at me and made a strange, almost purr-like noise. "Yes," it said, with its 1,000 voices. "Iris is the most clearly heard." "Yes," it said, with its 1,000 voices. "Iris is the most clearly heard." "I had to deceive you to judge your worth. You are worthy of being my kin. I'm not gonna let you turn me into, well, whatever you are. I'm not getting turned into that." Isiroremto looked down at me, almost in sadness. "I do not wish to destroy you. You would make a valued companion. My species was destroyed at the beginning of this world. My disciples will rebuild the Aglargu." It turned away from me, its tentacles shifting its position gracefully. "If you do not comply, I will shackle you to the seafloor. You will breathe, but not move. Your death will not be my mind. Instead, you will die from thirst." With that, Isiroremto's projected form faded into nothingness. I almost pitied it, though my instinct to survive overruled my pity. Both of those things were overruled by fear that night. I had another nightmare, though this one was the most disturbing of all of those I had experienced. It was a first-person dream. I was standing in my room when suddenly the walls fell away. I was at the seafloor, and to my surprise, I could see everything around me. It wasn't distressing at all, as I could breathe, and wasn't cold, until I turned my head to the right. I saw a creature like Immortality, though it looked far younger. Its face was armorless, exposing its blue-green flesh. Its eyes were bright orange and pierced the haze of the water disturbingly well. I tried to run from it, but my feet would not move. When I looked down at them, they appeared to be fused into the sand beneath me. The Aglargu turned to me and said softly, "Do not be afraid, Tobias. It's me, Sylvia." I stared at the thing in shock. In response, it seemed to almost smile. "There is no reason to fear us. We are no less human than you." After saying this, Sylvia swam away. I tried desperately to free myself from the sand, but to no avail. Realizing the hopelessness of the situation, I screamed and screamed, praying that someone, somewhere would hear me. Every night since then, I've dreamt on the seafloor, except that there is no Sylvia to comfort me. Last night, however, the dream changed. I was free to move in the ocean, my vision enhanced. The waves and currents did not affect me. I felt liberated and powerful. Immortality appeared to me in its physical form, and we danced among the waves, all the while telling jokes and stories as Iris and I used to. I know now what I must do. I stand at the beach where I used to be a lifeguard, and as my life as a human comes to an end, my life as an immortal Aglargu begins. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And talk about some tongue twisting names. Lots of consonants in those. That was Darkwatyr, spelt with a Y instead of an E. It's from the Creepypasta Wiki. I hope you enjoyed it. I had fun making it. I'm Fear the GreatWhite. I love all you creepy little bastards. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. And click that sub button if you want to become one of my creepy little bastards. I mean, if you want to join this freaky fear family. Also, click the little bell if you want to get notified when new videos drop. Once again, I'm Fear the GreatWhite. I love you all. Bye.